Hello and welcome to Funky Rainbow. It's such a pleasure to be hosting this bazaar from Chandigarh again. I said this in our last bazaar on the eve of Christmas that the traveling bookshop has finally managed to get the book bazaar traveling as well. And I'm utterly delighted to say that we're hosting a bazaar now, to celebrate the Harvest Festival, that's being celebrated at different parts of the country. We're hosting this one from Chandigarh again. And of course, today from the house of our very wonderful guest who's going to join us later in the show today. The theme of the bazaar, of course, is food for thought. I think all our bazaars are food for thought, but this one quite literally focusing on food and farming and what it takes to grow our food and to grow it sustainably. I can see Muttama has joined us, who's also here in Chandigarh with us, but at the school where we're going to be hosting a literature festival next week. Muttama is saying, hello, partners. Muttama reporting from St. Kabir Public School, Chandigarh. What a pleasure it is, Muttama, to have you setting things up at the festival while we're hosting a bazaar here. We'll be done with the show and join you very, very soon. So, of course, like I said, I should actually have begun by wishing everybody a happy Makar Sankranti, a happy Pongal, happy Lodi, happy Magh Bighu. There are just so many, many festivals that get celebrated to sort of a bountiful harvest that awaits when spring comes going forward. So, of course, in and we know that Chandigarh in Punjab, the festival that gets celebrated is Lodi. And I know when our guest Rahul Sharma joins us a little later in the show today, mm, many myths around Lodi being a harvest festival will certainly get absolutely, they will be taken off from your heads for sure. Because for us, talking to Rahul, was quite an eye opener, because when you farm, you are so much in connection with the seasons, with the soil, with your land. And for many of us who actually are at the other end of the spectrums, not so connected with our own land, the sense of these festivals is so very different. Yes, I can see Sham.
I haven't gone live on Instagram.
Okay, Sham saying that he hasn't connected live on Instagram. So I'm going to say hello to all our friends on Instagram as soon as he connects. And I can see Sunila Kulkarni Gupte here. Hello, Team Funky Rainbow. Happy festival time to all of us. Thank you so much for joining us. What a pleasure it is to have you here this morning, Sunila. And for our friends on Instagram, we're live from Chandigarh. We are celebrating. It's the harvest season, and we are celebrating a bazaar filled with children's books on farmers and farming to celebrate the spirit of this season, the Harvest Festival. And of course, I was telling our friends on Facebook before you joined us on Instagram that we are, going live from Chandigarh. We're so delighted that, the traveling bookshop is able to host a traveling book bazaar. The space that we're hosting the book bazaar from is the home of our very wonderful and immensely talented guest, Rahul Sharma, who's going to be joining us later in the show. He's a techie turned organic farmer, and he has so much to talk about our connection with the land, with the food we eat, that I believe this conversation is going to be most apt for a harvest festival season, and most apt for a lot of us who seem to have lost that connection with nature. We'll wait for Rahul to join us at 12 noon. But before that, I'm going to get started with a bunch of recommendations on Indian children's books, recommendations of Indian children's books, all centric around food, farming. I mean, not even so much about food as it is about seeds, crops, and farming. Please do feel free to put down the names of books that you are familiar with, like you always do during the shows. It's always lovely for us to know, what books you are familiar with, and if we have, perhaps missed out any of them in our collection. As always, all the books that I recommend and a lot more up on our site www.funkyrainbow.com. Click on the tab that says Book Bazaar, go to season 5, and there will be one called Farming. You can click on that tab. Many of the books that we are recommending today, all the books that we're recommending today, and many more up in that tab. Divya Menon, what a pleasure to see you this morning. I'm wondering whether it's Avyukt and Ameya are there with you as well. Happy Harvest Festival time from all of us here. Sure, we do miss those sugar candies and all the goodies that come with Sankranti, but we're eating different kinds of goodies, actually very similar goodies up here in Chandigarh as well. I mean, the gajak and the revdi and the til. I mean, even in Bangalore, even in Karnataka, the Sankranti festival has bits and pieces of jaggery, it has pieces of sesame, it has little pieces of coconut. So but we're just enjoying it in a different form, that's it. Always giving me the belief that India is so united in the way it celebrates its festivals. So a very happy Sankranti to all of you who are watching from Karnataka and from any other part of the country. Uttarayan, or Magh Bihu, or Pongal, or Lodi. A very happy harvest season to everybody. My first set of recommendations this morning, and yes, of course, I can see Avyukt saying, and sugarcane auntie, we can see it all around here. Yes, we do miss that sugarcane, and the eating of the sugarcane, to just peel off the skin of it, and keep chewing on it to get the sugarcane juice. I guess we're going to come back and enjoy our piece of sugarcane. Preeti Ramchandran, happy Pongal to you. Good morning. You say season's greetings. What a yummy theme to have picked for today. We have a big appetite now. Well, I hope it's a big appetite for books that I know you most definitely have. You and your family, definitely Guhan has. And Tara Veeraraghavan, this bazaar, as always, would have been incomplete without your good morning. Such a pleasure to see all of you. I'm going to get started with my recommendations, but not before I thank our wonderful host, our wonderful guest of the day, who has lent us his house, not just his wisdom, but lent us his beautiful house to host the book bazaar. We're just thrilled with the way the whole thing has been set up. Big thank you going out to Rahul Sharma and his wife Deepta Vivekanand for letting us host the bazaar from their home. If it was less cold in Chandigarh, we would have most certainly hosted the bazaar from Rahul's farm. I mean, I think it would just be so wonderful to be sitting right in the midst of green fields and hosting the show. But like Rahul pointed out, it is really cold here. And Lodi, which is more a folk festival and not really a harvest festival, and which was quite an eye opener for me, frankly, pointed out that this is not the season where anything is harvested in Punjab. It's too cold. If it was not, we would have hosted the bazaar definitely from Rahul's fields. But of course, we have a big harvest of books lined up for you. That's our specialization. And I'm going to begin with my first recommendation, which perhaps many of you are familiar with, this wonderful bilingual book in Hindi called The Seed. In fact, my first two books are, connected to seeds, and just that very beautiful concept of sowing a seed and the wonder of seeing a plant sprout from it. Now, this one about a little girl, it's written and illustrated by the one and only Deepa Balsavar, so hugely talented, surely one of our finest writers and illustrators for children. This one, published by Tulika, is about a little girl who finds a seed, puts it in a pot, and waits. Now, you see that virtue of waiting. I mean, it is just so sometimes lost on us. We've become part of that, uh, you know solutions to everything in just a jiffy. That the beautiful concept of waiting. I mean, once upon a time, uncles and aunts of mine who lived in other parts of the country sent us letters, and we waited for those letters to come to us. And they may have informed us over a phone call that they've sent us the letters, so we would just wait in eager anticipation. And there's just something so beautiful about that waiting, which I think Deepa's book captures so marvelously, about a little girl who plants a seed in a pot, waits, and you know what? Even more than waits, waits curiously to see what happens. Of course, you all know what happens, but you've just got to pick up this fabulous book meant for 2+ year olds. It's bilingual. We have the English Hindi version. I'm not sure they have other bilingual versions in print at the moment, but if they do, then we'll certainly source it and have it up on our site. Preeti is saying that yes, Guhan says his favorites include Grand Chapati Contest, Camp Sweets, Sweet and Spicy Sweet Shop, Slurp Slurp, The Cherry Tree, Dosas by Muttu Mami and Muttu Mama in the Lion's Feast. Oh, a lot and lot of food books. The focus this time, though, is on books of farmers and farming and seeds, not so much on tasty foods. Of course, all of these become tasty foods eventually, but the focus this time in the bazaar is on books that turn the spotlight on what it takes to grow your own food. And I think there's just much beauty in that. But the books that you've listed, Gohan's favorites, each one a yummy delight. So The Seed by Deepa Balsavar, meant for 2+year-olds. And in a similar vein, just a lovely little book from Jyotsna Prakashan called Nona and the Apple Tree. Now, what is, again, just the beauty of what happens when a seed starts to sprout. So what happens in this story? Nona, this one's written by Kanchan Shiny and illustrated by Radhika Tipnis. Now Nona, she eats an apple and spits out the seed. Can you see it? Can you see one lone seed being spit out by Nona? And what happens to that seed? It flew out of the window and fell on the street. A dog came by and stepped on it, and then, of course, carried away the seed. So, for our youngest readers, what a beautiful way to capture the magic of a seed, how it travels, and what happens to it finally. What I really love about this beautiful book is the fact that, when the story ends, is it really the ending or is it a new beginning? I mean, it's just so I mean, it's a the ending is not a surprise for adults, at least, definitely. But you have to think, is that surprise ending really a new beginning? Well, it's the harvest season, it's the season for new beginnings, and it's a great book to use to celebrate the harvest festival across the country. I mean, just to enjoy it, at a time when the harvest festivals are being celebrated in many parts of the country, but not in Punjab. I mean, Lodi, which we've always associated as being a harvest festival, we have it from a farmer, someone who works on the ground, telling us that it's not the harvest. Their harvest season is Baisakhi, which comes later in April. Quite an eye opener for me. That was, in fact, for all of us at Funky Rainbow, we were like, okay, we have to work with, get our hands into the soil a lot more than we actually do. Shiraz, so lovely to have you join us at the bazaar. It's a beautiful story, you say, and a happy Makar Sankranti. Thank you. A happy Makar Sankranti to you too, and a very happy Lodi to you as well. Shruti Sri Raghunath, what a pleasure to have you at the bazaar. Avni and the Pea Plant is also a wonderful book. Thank you for sharing that fantastic recommendation with us. It's in our bazaar. If you go to the website www.funkyrainbow.com, click on the tab that says Book Bazaar, go to season 5 and go to the segment on farming. It is in that segment for sure. But I'm afraid Pratham doesn't have Avni and the Pea Plant in print, but you can certainly read it on Story Weaver. my next set of recommendations are a clutch of wonderful picture books by our favorite terrace gardening author Niyati Sharma. And I'm sure as I say the names Niyati Sharma, you know which books I'm going to focus on. Niyati grows her own wonderful terrace garden. They do she I remember in a conversation with her saying that they try to source as much of their food that they consume from their own terrace garden. And had we been hosting this bazaar from Bangalore, we would certainly have considered doing it from Niyati's terrace garden. So, the Tomato Thief, which is her first, which is the first book in the series. There's the Tomato Flood, the second one in the series, and of course there is Harvest Day, which is the one that I was going to focus on. But all three coming from Niyati's own life experiences of her family, that is invested in terrace gardening and growing their own food. So, of course, for the ones who are familiar, this is a book. I mean, these three lovely picture books by Niyati Sharma, and the first one illustrated by Alankrita Amaya. The second two Alankrita Amaya, but the new one is Vibha Surya, illustrated by Vibha Surya. Now, Tomato Thief is about excuse me, two kids, about young Veer who has, planted tomatoes in his terrace garden, and he cannot wait to taste those tomatoes. But, just as they're getting ripe enough to pick, they something strange happens. They start to disappear. The tomatoes, start to go missing. And Veer is just determined to get his nose into this mystery. You can see, it's a simple picture book. We'd say, 3 4 plus year olds, but if you're narrating it to your children, well, they can listen to the story at any age. And that doesn't really extend only to the younger age group. It also goes to kids that are much older as well. Now, what happens? How can we solve the mystery of the missing tomatoes? You have to read this fantastic picture book to find out. And the second one in that series, like, Tomato Flood, they love, of course, Veer, and this time he has a sibling, Anaya, who loves to help their father in the garden. They love to water the plants, they love to pluck out the weeds. And this is what I was saying. We get so disconnected from getting our hands dirty in the soil. Not Sunila Kulkarni Gupta, who grows a beautiful garden just in her terrace. I mean, there are times in which we've seen photographs of her flowers, and she has all the botanical names at the tip of her tongue. Really, that's what I mean. I was talking about our own garden, and what happened was that during COVID, we did get a chance to absolutely, pay some attention to the garden. Set up. Like got a lot of flowers, planted a lot of flowers, set up a little kitchen garden as well. And the pleasure when just something as simple as palak or like green chilies or lady's finger, when it sprouts and it is available for you to use, it's such a pleasure, really. So I can imagine. I think it's wonderful if you encourage your children to be part of this process as well. So for these kids, for Anaya and Veer, there are a lot of tomato saplings now in the garden. You can see it. It continues from that stories, and they expect that there's going to be a bumper harvest, going to be a tomato flood, literally. What are they going to do with so many tomatoes? What would you do? I mean, you would give it to your family, you would give it to neighbors, you would give it to friends. But kids with their fantastic imaginations, think up of all kinds of things to do with this harvest of tomatoes. Two, excellent books, and this one so right for the theme of our bazaar today. And it celebrates really the first harvest. I mean, it's the first rain of the season, and Veer and Anaya are keen, very keen, to help their father sow seeds in the vegetable garden. That's exactly what I was talking about. And you can see, what are they doing? You can see how they're helping their father. But what are they going to plant? But the Baba keeps that as a big surprise. Baba is taking care of the vegetables. Mommy is taking care of the flowers. But it's a surprise to Veer and Anaya, as about what is going to come out from their plants. Are they going to be flowers? Are they going to be fruits? It's such a lovely story about harvesting, about farming. And it really teaches the wonder of nature just unfurls so beautifully when you plant something and you don't know what is going to harvest from it. Sunila saying, Vidya, you give me too much credit. I don't know all the botanical names. Do you know? I don't even know the botanical name of a tomato. Well, Sunila, you and Archana Atri and, a whole bunch of other friends who, all books people, but, also so much in love with nature and flowers. I feel that when you guys are talking to each other, you seem to know so much. You really are green fingers, green thumbs in many ways, far, far more than I am, really. And honestly, it was COVID that actually made me go back and look at my own garden. And my father used to be a big green thumb, and was very, very garden proud. Loved to see his garden flowering, loved to sit in the lawn and enjoy an evening on the lawn. It took COVID for us, for my brother and me, to really reconnect with our garden. We've lived in this house for very many years, but it really did take the 2 years of COVID to reconnect and to plant things and to see them grow in front of our eyes. So you folks far, far more knowledgeable than I am. Now, like I said, what coming back to this story, what is it? Veer Baba and Mummy's plants. There are going to be fruits. There are going to be flowers. But Anaya, in this story, has planted a seed and doesn't know what's going to come out of that plant. There are only leaves, leaves, and more leaves growing. You have to read this charming story of Harvest Day to find out what gets harvested from Anaya's plants. So that was a set of three lovely picture books from our resident terrace gardener in Bangalore, Niyati Sharma. Lovely ones to introduce your youngest readers to the concept of growing their own plants and eventually growing their own food. Our next recommendation is one of my favorite books from Kalpavreksh, and this one, Traveling Seeds by Lavanya Karthik. I mean, why the focus so much on seeds? They are the root of everything. I mean, of course, it's ironical to call the seed a root, but a seed is the beginning of all life, really, right? And I think we've got such lovely books, that focus on seeds and what happens to the wonder, what is the wonder that unfurls when a seed sprouts. But in this one, Lavanya Karthik telling you about seeds that like to travel. It's not just Funky Rainbow that likes to travel. It's not just our books that travel, really, right? It's seeds. And, what I particularly love about Lavanya's book is, how wonderfully it's beautifully illustrated. Again, author illustrator Lavanya Karthik, how well she's categorized the seeds, the names that she gives them. She calls them their flyer seeds, their floater seeds, their hitchhiker seeds, there are trickster seeds. And, I mean, that classification itself is such a lovely way to understand how seeds travel. And why is it important to understand how seeds travel? Because this is the best way to keep their own species alive, their own that seed and that kind of crop alive, essentially. And how the entire ecosystem is so connected to make it possible for seeds to travel, for seeds to survive, and for seeds to bloom, I mean, to sprout everywhere. Beautiful, beautiful book, very beautifully illustrated. Like you see this section, see there's some seeds, they are flyers that make use of the breeze to journey to new pastures and sprout new shrubs and trees. And then, of course, some seeds are hitchhikers. They ride piggyback on birds, insects, and mammals as they move along their track. And you can see lots of information. As readers, you will be introduced to so many creatures, big and small, that help these seeds on their journeys. This is a book published by Kalpavriksha. We would say 6+ years would be an ideal age group, or maybe even 5+ years, an ideal age group for these books. My next recommendation, and I'm going to keep a watch on the time because we did lose a bit of time in between when the live stream went off, lost connectivity. My next book, of which I don't have a physical copy at hand here, but we do have it at Funky Rainbow. So if you order it, then we'll be able to ship it out to you from there. Is one of the most inspiring books on seeds that that I think it's definitely one of the most inspiring books on seeds that exist in our collection. It's called The Seed Savers, and Sham will put up the cover just now. It's a slim book from Pratham that is based on real life events. Do you have a cover of the book to put up? Okay, there it is. Written by Bijal Vajrajani and illustrated by Jayesh Sivan. What a fantastic book this is. A book that is layered so wonderfully. It's about a group of villagers who come together and make the choice only to use organic seeds. And because seeds become a problem, I mean, because there's a problem with the harvest, when the harvest is not on time, there's not enough money. So they realize and understand that the problem of a delayed harvest is primarily because they run out of seeds to sow, and they decide as a village to consciously adopt organic seeds and set up a seed bank. What a fantastic idea it is. It is based on a real life story, and it's so inspirational. Shruti Sri Raghunath, you say Seed Savers is such a wonderful book. It indeed is, because it gives you an idea about the power of collective decision making and the kind of impact it has. Imagine for a whole village that suffers because they don't have enough seeds to sow, to come together, to choose to use only organically, to use only organic seeds, and to set up a seed bank so that seeds can be harvested and nobody runs out of seeds in the future. It is, so that nobody has to face the crunch that they face, maybe because of the, maybe because of the problem of weather, maybe because of, maybe because there is not enough money to buy seeds. So there is a seed bank that gets set up, and that, I think, sends out such a powerful message of conservation, of how, if we work together, no problem is too large to be solved, and it turns the spotlight on farmers and farming. And that it's not a hunky dory life always. They face all kinds of challenges. The food that we eat, I mean, comes to us because of the toil and the work that somebody else does on the soil, really, right? And I think Seed Savers brings together these, all these stories. And that's why I said it was a multi-layered story, much like all the layers of soil. This story too has layers and layers to it. How do you combat unscrupulous landlords? I mean, unscrupulous farm holding, landlords, collective power there. How do you ensure that you never run out of seeds? Again, the decision to set up a seed bank. I mean, the story. And of course, the message of conservation, to use organic seeds. I'm sure it's far, far easier to just get, the seeds that are available in plenty, and, use them on your fields. But to keep the fields healthy, which means you keep the food healthy as well, the food that comes out of it healthy as well. It is such a wonderful way to show the power of people when they decide to do the right thing. Asha Nehmaya, you say hello, Team Funky Rainbow. Happy Lodi. It's looking warm and nice in Chandigarh. We are absolutely looking forward to having you here, in Chandigarh very, very soon. I'm not sure that much of the revdi and the gajak that we're eating during Lodi is left behind, but taking a message from the book that we just recommended, The Seed Savers, I think we'll set up a little bank of gajak and revdi and, a til ke laddu for you, so that you and Benita Coelho and all the other writers, Christopher Doyle, Vikram Agnihotri, all of you who are joining us, have a bit of those sweets to eat when you come in. We are delighted, of course, to be hosting this show from the home of our wonderful guest, Rahul Sharma, and his wife, Deepta Vivekanand. And he will be joining us in the show very, very shortly to talk about what it takes, to get your hands dirty in the soil, and why it's important to be mindful of the food that we eat. So that was The Seed Savers, of course. In a similar vein, another lovely little book that we have in our collection, from Terry, written by Sandhya Rao, called Seed, Soil, Sun. Now, this is for a slightly older age group. I mean, we typically, even traveling seeds that we recommended, prior to the Seed Savers, we'd say, meant for slightly older kids, because it's about the, the dispersion of seeds. How do seeds travel from one place to the other? Much like the Seed Savers, about the, power of community, the collective power of a community to make the change that they want to change. Now, Seed, Soil, and Sun, a book of non-fiction, put together by Terry, which tells you, where does our food come from? Of course, we know it comes from trees and plants. How do plants make this food? They make it through a process called photosynthesis, of course. Now, what role does the sun play in photosynthesis? How does water, reach our, reach our soil? How do all these processes, what role does the soil play in nurturing the, sprouting of a seed and the growth of the tree? How does all this come together to form a very, very healthy ecosystem from which we get our food? The miracles of nature, as I said, right? Which which we often just cut ourselves off from. I mean, there's just so much to do. There's so many things to look at on your cell phone. There's like emails to respond to. There's WhatsApp conversations that are going on. But the true connection to nature comes only when you get your hands dirty in the soil. And like I said, from personal experience, for not having done this for a very, very long time, and then to get into it during COVID, and to see those flowers blossom in our garden, and to get like even just a small batch of palak from our kitchen garden was such a pleasure. That pleasure you have to unlock for your children, and for yourselves, not just for your children. And these books, the books that we're recommending in the course of the show, just a wonderful way, to glimpse into this beautiful phenomenon of how nature helps us get all the food that we need. This one's written by Sandhya Rao. You can see, I mean, in the format, I can't open out this poster, but I can certainly, you see the book has also a nice game that you can play. And what is that? I mean, it's a game about the sun, about the earth, the sun being at the center of the universe, all the different creatures that contribute to the growing of our food. This one, seed, soil, and sun, all giving you a great glimpse, readers, that I'd say 8 plus, maybe 9 plus, depending on what level the children are reading at, to understand the role of all of these, of the sun, of seed, and soil in giving us the food that we eat. I'm going to quickly send out a bunch of hellos to our friends who have joined us. I'm going to say hello to Sunila Kulkarni Gupte, to Divya Menon, to Avyukta Nameya Nair, to Preeti Ramchandran, to Tara Veeraraghavan, to Shiraz Sheni, to Shruti Sri Raghunath. I'm going to say hello also to Chetan, to Suma Tekur, to Doodle Holic Store, to Ma Janaki, to Nandini Nair, to Padma Priya, to Srinidhi Kashyap, to Asha Nehemiah, of course. Thank you, all of you, for joining us at the show this morning. Utterly and absolutely delighted that we are hosting our second bazaar from Chandigarh, and that the traveling bookshop has actually managed to get the bazaar to go traveling as well. And if it was less cold in Chandigarh, we would have been hosting the bazaar from the fields of our organic farmer friend Rahul Sharma from Graintastic, who's going to join us in just a bit. Just a bunch of one or two more recommendations, before we move on to saying hello to our guests. Again, this excellent book for older readers called Something to Chew On. Of course, what you're chewing on is food, but the food, its textures, its aromas, its tastes, its colors, it's such an important part of our daily routine. But do we give pause? I mean, do you even pause to think of, how much do we know of all of this? How does the food, for instance, how do we get the food that we eat? Where does it come from? Is there a history to to how human beings became agriculturists? And how is the food that we eat connected to us in so many ways? Customs, festivals. Of course, how does food contribute to good health? And does it really matter what we choose to eat? This book, again put together by Kalpavriksha, got multiple authors, all the stalwarts from Kalpavriksha writing the book: Sujata Padmanabhan, Shiba Desor, Sharmila Deo, and Tanya Majumdar, and of course the one and only Rohan Chakravarti, doing his beautiful cartoons in the book. But this is a book that we need to get our kids to read over and over again. And it's not just our kids. We need to read over and over again, because the conscious choices that we make, they make a difference to who we are, how we live our lives, and how our health plays out in the course of our lives. And I mean, I love the fact that the book traces it right from the beginning, like from the time that, ancient man, Stone Age men, how did they turn into agriculturalists? Do we know the history of food? Do we know what it does to the earth, by growing food, what it does to our own earth? I mean, starting from there, coming all the way, to what it how to grow our food sustainably, how to ensure that there's enough of it always for everybody. The book really brings out, there's really a lot of food for thought in this book, and something to chew on for every single person. In fact, there's a segment in it which I recall reading, which says no one should go to bed hungry. I'm going to yeah, just turn to that segment, saying no one should go to bed hungry. Now, what is it about, what is it about wasting food? And is how can it be distributed equitably to make sure it's not that one person has everything to eat, another one absolutely goes hungry. So like I said, lots to chew on, going from the history to the growing of food to what it takes to grow it sustainably, and what happens in this unequal world. How do you ensure that, what are the choices that all of us can make so that nobody goes to bed hungry? It's a fantastic book. I think children and adults alike, we'd say 9+ year olds, and anyone up to whatever, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, great grandparents, everybody will have something to chew on from this book. I'm just going to watch on how much time we have. Okay. It is, of course, the harvest season in many parts of the country. But like Rahul, enlightened us the day that we started discussing this bazaar with him, Lodi, which is the festival that's getting celebrated in the Punjab right now, is not the harvest festival. It's actually a folk festival. And why is it not the harvest festival? Because it's too cold to harvest anything in the Punjab right now. I mean, what a logical point. What an absolutely logical sort of connection that needed, because all the while this is exactly what we've been studying. We study in our textbooks, right? We combine Lodi with all the other festivals, the harvest festivals that get celebrated across the country. But it took an organic farmer who has his hands dirty in the soil to tell us, come on, that's not what it is. What do you think will grow outside in the Punjab at this point in time when it's too cold? Nothing will flower, nothing will sprout. And just looking out at the at his own garden, I'm like, that is so true. What is growing right now? So Lodi is actually a folk festival. It sort of signals the passing, the end of the winter solstice. And like these festivals get celebrated in different parts of the country, there are associated rituals, there's celebrations that go along with it. But their harvest festival here is in April, which is Baisakhi. Shruti Sri Raghunath, you're saying you're definitely going to get this book, something to chew on, especially for somebody like you, so interested in books that that bring nonfiction alive for readers, because you teach and you're in school every day with kids. I think something to chew on is a book that you will certainly be able to use across the grades at your school. Arun, what a pleasure to see you. We were absolutely missing you the last couple of bazaars, but I know that it's schools have reopened and you're back in school on Saturdays. We are delighted to see you here this morning. Our focus, because it's a time when there are so many harvest festivals being celebrated across the country, it is our time. I mean, we've focused on Indian children's books that bring farmers, farming, seeds, the growing of plants into the spotlight. I think it's a theme that you would absolutely enjoy. Do check out the recommendations that have gone by. I know how interested in the environment and nature you are personally. So I think many of our recommendations you would particularly love to have in your library. Of course, like I said, because it's the harvest festival, and Uttarayan is one of the festivals, the harvest festivals that get celebrated in Gujarat. We have this wonderful book that we are recommending, Farmer Falgu Goes Kite Flying. Many of you familiar with Farmer Falgu, the character who inhabits, the farmer who inhabits four, children's picture books. This one, all of them written by Chitra Saundar and illustrated by Kanika Nair. If you've read Farmer Falgu books, you know that his trips, I mean, he makes a trip to the market once, once he finds the noises in his farm unbearable and decides to make a trip outside his farm. And in one, he actually makes a trip to the Kumbh Mela. So for those of you who've read those books, know that his trips never go smoothly. There are always some hitches and glitches in all the travels that Farmer Falgu undertakes. Now, this time round, he is off on a trip to the annual kite flying festival that's happening near his village. And this time, he's going with his daughter, Ayla. You can see Ayla on the cover, and Ayla is very, very excited to be traveling with her father. But whoosh, and there's the big gust of wind that just takes Isla's kite away even before she can fly it. What does Farmer Falgo do? Can you see the kite going flying, flying, flying away? What does Farmer Falgo do? How can does he is he able to make another kite for his daughter? Or what is the solution? You know he's an intrepid man if you've read the other books. What is the solution that he comes up to restore his daughter's happiness? The book really, gives you a superb look and feel of the kite flying festival in Rajasthan. And, I'm sorry, I think I said Gujarat earlier. I meant Rajasthan. And a great peek into Uttarayan that gets celebrated, the kite flying festival that gets celebrated every year. So there's Farmer Falgu goes kite flying, and there is of course Rachna Chabria's festival stories from around the world, which focuses on many festivals, but there's a nice big chunk of it on Makar Sankranti. There is, there are celebrating Lodi in the village. That's how it begins. That's the first segment in the book. And there's Dadi's prize winning Pongal dish, kite flying on Makar Sankranti. So a lot of focus on the January festivals, some of them harvest festivals, some of them not. And while you're reading about these festivals, you also get a glimpse into the myriad festivals that India celebrates right through the year, and hence festival stories through the year. There are, of course, two young children in the book, Natasha and Nikhil. So the book is formatted in such a manner where there's a small section of the book where the author has tells you the story of the festival, but also Natasha and Nikhil, who record their thoughts in diary format. They experience a festival basically, and then they write about what they're experiencing before the author Rachna Chabria goes on to talk about what the festival signifies. So you first actually see it through the eyes of two young children, or their experiences of a festival. And of course we have it in this collection because there's a bit on Pongal, there's something on Makar Sankranti, there's something on Uttarayan. So a lot of harvest festivals being covered in the book. There's also, of course, a small little segment on Lodi. I'm just going to check if our guest for the day is ready to join us, on the chat. And I have one last book to recommend before he comes live. And joins us to talk about farming, the big choice that he made to give up his job as a techie and to be working in the fields to ensure that good quality food and grains are produced for everyone to eat. It's a fantastic initiative what Rahul Sharma has undertaken. And just before he joins us, I would like to say I'm sorry, the network's gone off
It's back.
again. And
It's back.
is it back? Okay, the network is back. My last recommendation this morning, before we say hello to Rahul, who's right here, is this excellent book called Unearthed. And I know we often people tell us that we're only recommending books for younger readers, but Unearthed definitely something that would work for older kids, for kids who are 10 and above, is the environmental history of India. I mean, the reason I'm recommending this book by Megha Gupta, which I thoroughly enjoyed reading, and which has a lovely, lovely foreword by the one and only Bittu Sehgal, is because, she has, in the course of India's environmental history, spoken about the Green Revolution, quote unquote. I'm going to leave that green bit in quotes. I mean, what does mass farming, what did mass producing, mass farming do for us, do for the health of our farms, of the land, basically. She also talks about the white revolution, the milk revolution, basically. And while you learn the environmental history of India, it's very, very important to see these big decisions that get made on producing food in larger quantities. What do they do for us eventually? I know our guest of the day has very strong opinions on this, and that comes from lived experience, basically. But this is a wonderful book to introduce young readers, to the environmental history of India, a large part of which is captured, which is taken up by food, the growing of food, to ensure the food security of the nation. And do we really ensure the security of the people who need the food, or do we ensure the security of some other vested interests? These and more interesting questions debated in the book. These are all topics that we need to discuss. These are all topics that we need to talk to our to our children about, because eventually, we know that we want them to live in an equitable, in a sustainable, and a happier world. And I think the decisions that we make today are the ones that will impact that for sure. So these were my recommendations this morning. I'm going to have Rahul join us in his own house, of course, and such a pleasure to have you here this morning.
Hi.
Hi,
Hi.
Rahul.
Hello.
I'm just quickly going to check. Sham, are we going to do the Instagram
No, I
thing
think
with
we'll
Rahul?
just save some bandwidth and
We'll
yeah,
stick to,
we'll stick to
okay.
whatever setup
All
we
right,
have.
all right. That's absolutely fine. I mean, we were just wondering whether we had to go live on your Instagram feed as well. But if this is all right, then. So, ladies and gentlemen, I absolutely want you to put your hands together. And I know I'm not seeing it, but for Rahul Sharma, who, yes, who joins us in his own home. I said he's given us a lot of gyan. He's also given us his home to host the Bazaar from. And Rahul is, who heads the organization. He calls himself an organic farmer and the chief plow at Graintastic. And I know he's shaking his head because he says his wife, Deepta Vivekanand, has come up with these fantastic descriptions. But Rahul is, a techie who decided to move away from the world of technology, the big bad world of technology, right into the world of organic farming, isn't it, Rahul?
Yeah, hi. Hi, Vidya. Welcome to Chandigarh. Welcome to our house. So yeah, like we were discussing, it was a shift, and I think it a shift. I would never go back to something which I was doing at that time. You talked about IT. You talked. I think I was listening to you talking about
But to
Yeah.
just bring you back, are we back, Sham? Are we back live up
Yeah.
again? All right, we're back live up again. So, yes, you were telling us about the big world of
Yeah, the shift.
technology and the shift to farming.
I can't, like, I think we were discussing the other day also. So a lot of things happened, and I
Mm-hmm.
think there was a lot of context also already
Okay.
in my family, in the way we actually, where we grew up, where we spend our holidays, vacations, back at our farm many times. Summer holidays, my dad would take us to our farm. That was a regular thing. So I think at that time probably I did not realize, but I think all those things kind of, growing food. We always grew up in a house. There was a kitchen garden, and
Mm-hmm.
so that was like very normal for us. You know, you go, there is some food growing in the back of your house. So all those things probably you don't realize, but at one time everything kind of comes together, and it makes a certain context for you. And I think that's something what happened, and that's when the shift happened. And from IT to growing food, I think that happened like in 7 days. I would always joke to my friends. One day I was in a sprint meeting
Okay.
in with my client, and just after 7 days, I was talking to somebody how to make fertilizer using cow dung and cow urine. So that was a very, it was a huge shift. There was a certain honeymoon period also associated with that. You know, everybody had, I also had that notion of, yeah, I'll have my picture taken on a tractor, on a field, we're doing something. All that, you know, there's a romance also was associated
Yeah,
with
with
that.
farming.
That faded away, but the real thing, the the going back to something which was very basic, which I understand, and something growing food for people, growing safe food,
Absolutely.
organic food, and taking care of the soil. I think all those things kind of started to make sense, and then that romance faded away. But then these principles of being of growing food and growing food for others and safe food, and it connects to so many things. Like I was listening to the books you were mentioning also, it connects us to so many things which we just don't realize, but it just happens when you have to get into this domain.
It's so impressive, from being a laptop toting ninja, as your wife called you, to being a cassie wielding
Mm.
farmer on the field, is a huge journey. I mean, even though you said it takes only 7 days, but the thing is, Rahul, when we were talking yesterday, you said that you've always been reading about food. That's something that's been an interest for you, even right through your IT career in Bangalore, right? Would you like to
Yes,
tell us a bit about that?
yes.
Yeah. Hmm.
So I think before I actually did this, made the shift, few I really started reading about. I don't know how it started, but I remember reading about food. Probably I just might have picked up a book, or somebody might have called me, or maybe that context which I just talked about, it just triggered something in me. I started reading about the food system. So, and what's wrong with our food system?
Mm-hmm.
So once you get into that, it was like an eye opener. I still remember reading a book which talked about how contaminated everything is, and we take all those things for granted, that all those things have become normal for us.
Mm.
That we go to a certain place to buy food, we
Right.
buy a certain type of food, which
Right.
now I call fake food. It's not food.
Okay.
And so all those things, and all those things kind of started to make sense for me. That's nourishing yourself with food is something so basic. Everybody should have access to it. It should
Correct.
not be that pesticide laden food should not be a norm for everybody. It
Correct.
should be, must be the other way around. And then I figured out that I have land. We have ancestral land back at home. I was telling everybody that if you have land,
Mm-hmm.
why don't you do something like that? Why
Mm-hmm.
don't you get into farming, grow food?
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized that I have land back home. And I was lucky in that sense, because if you want to start something like this in current scenario, in current economic scenario,
Right.
you want to buy land somewhere and then start agriculture and do some, that's not that easy. So I
Yeah.
was lucky in that sense. I already had land in my family. So I came back home, and that's how I started. We landed back in Chandigarh, and within 6 days of landing here in Chandigarh, I was at my farm. I said, "This is the area I want, and this is going to be organic from now on."
Mm-hmm. And did your family have trouble
Now
accepting the
they,
decision, or did they support you in
no,
that
no, no. Obviously,
decision? Right. Right.
I think they were really happy that I came back home.
Right.
I was you know how IT is. It takes you
Yes.
everywhere, all over the world, and then you just have a vacation to, you come back home. So I think my family, they were kind of happy that, I'm back, and also that there's somebody who can take over, take care of the farm,
That's
because
right.
these farms kind of go from generation to generation. And sadly, that's not the reality everywhere. People are selling off their land. I
Mhm.
thought I have that opportunity to conserve this patch of land,
Land.
and it will be organic and it will be thriving, and the soil will be healthy like forever, a single patch of land in my village. So I think that was a big deal.
So how did you then, get into, see, like you said, there's just such a romantic notion of
Hmm.
this person from Bangalore coming away from the city into, of course, back to your hometown in Chandigarh and going back into your fields in Mustafabad, right?
Yes.
Which is where they are. But what did it take to get your hands dirty, right? You're getting your hands down and you're not typing this information out on a laptop, right?
So we don't call it getting your hands dirty. I think we'll talk about that also.
Yeah.
That's a very negative thing people have created. Get your
All
hand.
right.
Once you put your hand in soil, they're not dirty.
Right.
Dirty has a
It's a
that
different
different
connotation.
connotation to that.
Absolutely. So well said.
So I think once I decided to come back, there was obviously a certain angle of I have to make my farm sustainable.
Hmm.
That was always there. I can't have just my getting my pictures taken and have that romantic thing, and then it will eventually go away. And I did it also. I had to make my farm sustainable, and that means there had to be an economic angle to it.
Correct.
So I figured that out also. I was lucky, so I could do some experiments on my field.
Okay.
So where other farmers grew only two crops, I remember in my first season I did nine crops.
Oh,
I
wow.
said
Really? Huh?
I'll do that because I can afford to take that risk. So I don't blame IT that much because it gave me financial security at the end of the day. So I did all those experiments. I said I'll grow this. Everybody at my village and nearby, people with fields nearby, they said no, this it won't
These
grow
crops
here.
won't grow.
But then I did, and some experiments were successful and some were not. So I thought that if I do something, and if it's successful, it's for everybody. And if
Absolutely.
something fails, it fails in my farm, and I'll take the I it's no need to spread this particular knowledge to people.
Hmm.
So all the risks are mine,
Hmm.
and if there's a
But the
benefit out of
yields.
everything, I'll just spread it to everybody. And people did come to my farm. They would stop. My farm is just near. You can see it from when you go on the GT road.
Hmm.
So people
The
would
Grand Trunk Road, folks. That's the
exactly.
GT Road.
So
Yeah.
when you go towards Amritsar, you will just see my farm, and people would actually stop there and see that what's growing. What is this crop you are growing? This is a paddy season, or this is a wheat season. What is this you're growing? So
Okay.
people would stop by and actually, come and talk about it
What
and
were those
see.
crops? What were those crops
I
that you?
remember doing black rice.
Okay.
All these were experiments. I remember
Okay.
doing soybean, and
Okay.
I remember sowing pulses. And
Okay.
but people have stopped growing all these things. We have lost that diversity. And I
Absolutely.
grew up hearing stories about all these things growing on my own land. My dad would tell me that yes, we would grow this for home consumption. And if there was something we would need, we would just go buy and we would barter.
Hmm.
We'll give some maize to somebody at the shop, and we'll get
Something else in
like,
return.
yeah, exactly, ration shop. So we have lost that diversity. We don't have that anymore. If you go in the fields now, you will see wheat all across. If you come in the summers, you will see paddy everywhere. You don't see any diversity. And we are very happy to see, very straight lined field and single crop growing. And here again, that has been normalized for us.
Absolutely. Actually, that was going to bring me pretty much to my next question. You speak with so much conviction on the diversity that existed in our fields, many years ago, and how we've sort of lost it, and how there's much sustainability in that diversity as well. But that's part of your organic farming concept, I'm assuming, or it's just the concept of farming that existed in India. Would you like to tell us a little bit
Yeah,
about
not
that?
just in India, farming was always very diverse.
Mm-hmm.
Farming, uh, so we talked about, I think one of the books also you talked about seeds.
That's right.
And so organic, when we say the word organic, I think we should kind of expand it a little bit to encompass whole other things. Sustainability, you talked about sustainability also,
That's right.
and that includes diversity. And I always connect diversity of soil,
Mm-hmm.
the microbes of diversity in the soil,
Mm-hmm.
to the diversity of microbes inside you. That's the
Ah,
connection everybody has to make. So not just diversity which you see, that there are five, six, seven different crops a farmer is growing, good, but there is a diversity in the soil also. Once that you lose the diversity on top of the soil, the microbes which are inside the soil, you lose that diversity also.
yeah, such a
And
good
those
point.
microbes actually help the crops make food. The crops grow because there are microbes in the soil, not
Absolutely.
because there is a urea in the soil.
Ah,
So urea feeds directly the crop, but the microbes feed the soil. The soil gives you your plant nutrition. That nutrition comes inside us, and that nutrition nourishes the gut microbes.
that's
So
right.
that's the direct relationship with healthy soil, healthy you.
Ah,
So see, diversity is just a word, but it encompasses all this: diversity of microbes, diversity of crops. So all that and diversity, eventually diversity on your plate.
absolutely.
So if you are growing two crops, you will have 10 different products made out of those two cereal crops. That's it.
Ah,
So we have lost that diversity. If you go back 10,000 years ago or before agriculture, 15,000 years ago, we had so much diversity. The spectrum of diet was this big. We were
right.
getting food from the jungle predominantly,
That's right.
uh, and seasons would change, and then people will move on, and then they will probably come back to the same area. They were not settled yet. They'll come back to the same area, and probably after 12 months the season would be similar again, and they would have the same type of fruits and vegetables and roots, whatever they were foraging.
That's right.
So imagine that food system, and imagine the food system which is now. It's a huge difference,
It is.
and it's affecting you, it's affecting everybody.
That's right. In fact, there's a question I think that Cham has been meaning to ask you. He says, "What kind of transformation have you seen on your farm in the soil, its quality, the fertility, the biodiversity? I mean, how long has it taken for you to see that kind of transformation?"
So very interesting. So you read about all these things,
Yes.
but then you actually see it happening on the farm.
Right.
So take soil, for example. Soil, when I still remember when I went to my farm after I came back, it would be dirt.
Hmm.
So there's a difference between soil and dirt.
Right.
Soil is
What a
alive.
good point.
So my soil was dead
Ah,
because of pesticides, urea, chemical fertilizer, insecticides, weedicide, everything. So there was no life in the soil at all.
and all that was used in the name of growing better crops.
Growing better crops, getting
Mm,
better yields, for example, but losing out on nutrition.
mm.
See, losing out on nutrition and health, it's a different thing. We'll talk about that also.
Yes.
So coming back to that soil,
Mm-hmm.
now when I go back there and I see the soil,
Mm-hmm.
you see the texture is different. The soil smells sweet. You
Mm.
pick up a soil and you try to smell that soil. There is a huge difference between a
Tiki
dirt
khushbu.
and a soil. Yeah, that khushbu, that sweet smelling soil. Why is that smell? Because there are those microbes and fungus and all those nematodes. They're all inside my soil, and there are a whole lot of earthworm. When it rains, you see a whole lot of earthworms coming out
Absolutely.
of the soil. So that diversity, so it's fascinating to see that, because you know that these are the creatures who are going to make food, which will eventually the roots of the plants will pick up, and it will when the flowering happens and the seed setting happens, it'll all go there, and that's what you eat.
And how
And
long did that process take?
it took about 2 years
Oh,
minimum.
two
two
years to
2 years,
revive the
yeah,
soil.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
See, we have seasons, so we have one cycle of
Mm-hmm.
summer cycle,
Mm-hmm.
actually three, but predominantly two seasons.
Okay.
So let's say it takes about 4 seasons of crops to
Mm-hmm.
grow different type of crops. And again, to bring that diversity in the soil, you have to bring that diversity in the crops also. Different crops nourishes different type of life in the soil.
Ah.
That's the relationship. That's a symbiotic relationship. I can't keep growing just one single crop
Mm-hmm.
and expect the soil to have all different type of flora and fauna. No, I also have to grow different
Different
type of
types of
crop.
crops.
That's the diversity which you see. You see I grow oil seeds,
Okay.
oil seeds crops. I
Mm-hmm.
grew pulses,
Mm-hmm.
which eventually gives nitrogen to the soil.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to change all that crop cycling.
Mm-hmm.
But you see that, you see it happening in front of you. You see vegetation coming on your field, which people would normally call weeds.
Ah,
Weeds again is a very negative type of thing. Oh, you have weeds,
completely.
so that means they have to be taken out and thrown away. They're bad, and then you spray weedicides to kill those weeds. They will come.
They're part of
They are
the
part of
ecosystem.
that diversity again, and they also nourishes the soil. So it's again something very wrong to say that these are weeds. Again, it's a bad word to be
Mhm.
used.
That's
So all
right.
those things you see it happening on your at your farm. You see birds coming in, because if you spray insecticide or pesticide on
Yes.
the all the neighboring fields, only there's a patch of land which is my field, free of everything. There are insects, there are spiders, there are earthworms, and there's nothing sprayed on the crops, so the birds will come.
Mhm.
And I'm very happy to see birds on my field. I say,
Absolutely.
okay, the food is for everybody,
Absolutely.
not just for me.
Absolutely. In fact, I can see Siddharth Nair saying we all have to go back to our roots. We all have to go back to the soil, really.
Absolutely, yes.
But that point that you made when we were just talking before about your focus, and I want to tell our audience, he has founded this organization called Graintastic. It's a farming initiative, a sustainable farming initiative. You folks must check out Graintastic on all social media. They're there on Instagram, they're on Facebook, they have their own website. And the different pulses and the kinds of wheat and rice that they grow, all available up on the site. But yesterday, when we were speaking, you spoke about, you said that amongst all these things that happen, the desire to ensure that all of us have pesticide free nutritious food to eat, which is actually available to us, but from which we move far far away, really, right? That is one of your
Yes,
biggest
totally. I believe it should be available to everybody, available, accessible. Affordability is another thing, but I think everybody, generally we leave everything to uh, the other party. Either the farmers or the state or the government or the central government, or they're not doing anything. There's nothing available. I think it's all about making that effort. People are lazy; they just don't make that effort. If they, if it's important for them, if they value it, they will find out a way.
Mm,
So if I value my health, how I want food which will nourish me and
mhm,
my family, my kids,
mhm.
I'll make an effort to actually find out, if I cannot grow it, where can I get it
Yes,
from? So I don't grow everything. I can
absolutely.
grow only certain things.
Hmm.
But then we have an effort of, there's a collective here,
Hmm.
and there's a farmland, and
Hmm.
people have just came together and they figured out a way to do community supported agriculture, what we call CSA. It's a
Okay.
community supported agriculture.
Okay.
So you have like a subscription system.
Okay.
Everybody pays up front
Hmm.
for the next, we have a season of 6 months for
Okay.
one, and
Okay.
we pay for the next 6 months,
Hmm.
and whatever comes out of the farm is gets divided into different bags, and it's like a thala system.
Ah,
Everybody gets seasonal, everybody gets local. So there's
yes.
just, you need to make that effort. All our big cities are surrounded by farmland.
Is it very expensive
It's, surprisingly, it's not. It's only 20,000 for 6 months. You divide 20,000 by six.
to get all the vegetables
Whatever
that
grows
you?
on the farm, whatever grows seasonal,
Hmm.
it gets divided among all the subscribers. And that's a very,
That's
that's the
fantastic.
initiative. So many, or you can get together and rent a piece of land,
Hmm.
and then gives a salary to somebody, and
Hmm.
then they grow grow
You
veggies for you.
right.
You can grow certain things in your
Your own.
backyard also, in your
Yes.
pot also, on the balconies also.
That's
So
right.
that's something which you can do. Everybody can
Absolutely.
do, and they should be doing it. It
Absolutely.
all starts here, not like you have to go to a farm. That probably is a one-off thing, but there are so many other initiatives you can take right at your own home.
Yeah, I can see Sunila Kulkarni Gupte. She's a writer. She's very, very fond of plants and gardening herself. She says it's such an educative, informative session, and because it's a lived life experience, it resonates so much more. Thank you so much for telling us your own experience, Mr. Sharma. Every word you say is true. We see how legumes are grown, the different vegetables. I love hearing about the soil, and it's just so important. The butterflies, the birds, all of that really helps. And how many labs? In fact, she has a question. She says, how many labs truly test organic? When they say that they grow organic vegetables and grain, how many labs really test it, or how many farms really test that, and how do we trust
So
them?
that's a big, yeah. So certification in India is questionable,
Dubious.
dubious, and then there's so that's from the let's say from the certified certification authority how they do their work. That's
Right.
one thing, but
Right.
that's again not in our control.
Right.
What in our control is what you should be doing. You should be visiting a farm.
Mhm.
Simple. So I do have a certificate. No, none of my client has ever asked me that, do you have a certificate? Can you show us a certificate?
Of that you're
So
organic.
I'll show something to you and you will trust that everything is organic.
Yeah.
That's a very different way of going about it.
That's
Again,
right.
this is the product of what we are used to. We are used to a certification. We are used to something written or authorized by someone. We are used
Right.
to that. So
Right.
we have to get out of all that. We have to grow out of it, and go visit a farm. So
Yeah.
I tell this to everyone. Why don't you come? I have two farms. One is actually not very far away. I said, come to my farm. I'll take you there and show you exactly how things are grown. And people who are really interested, they would actually do that.
Yeah.
Again, it comes back to that effort
That you need to
you
make.
need to make.
Absolutely. And also that beautiful thing that you said, I was thinking about it for a long time yesterday, about keeping the circle from which you source your food, fruits, and vegetables small.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Would you like to tell our audience? I'm just checking the time. We have a couple of more minutes, but I can see lots of questions coming up as well. So,
So with the over time, we have lengthened our food chain, the food system.
yes. Yes.
So from farmer to procurement by big industries, and then there's a processing industry which is involved. There's a packaging industry. There's a branding industry, and there's a retail industry, and then the food comes to us. And by the time it comes on the supermarket shelf, it's not food. So please make a distinction between what is food, and for kids it's very important.
That's
Parents
true.
must make food and fake food. Something which
Yes.
is packaged
Why don't you tell them?
something which is packaged is not food. Something which cooks in 2 minutes is not food. It does
That's
not
right.
nourishes. It does not nourish you. So you have to make that distinction.
Absolutely.
So food and fake food. So we have lengthened that chain, how we get our food or whatever we eat, right? So earlier it was not like that. Earlier it was either let's say farmers market or direct from a farmer or growing at home. If you cannot grow at home, then you find a farmer who can do it for you,
Right.
rather than going through this entire chain of somebody else is procuring for you. It's coming into the mandi. Every city has a mandi now,
That's
mandi,
right.
and then that ready wala is bringing it to you in front of your house, and then you are saying कि ये 2 रुपए का टमाटर क्यों है, इतना क्यों है, and you're doing all that. So you have to shorten that food chain.
Absolutely.
And I remember when there was this when the pandemic happened, all the supermarket shelves were empty
Empty. Yes.
because they have made those long food chains, and they got disrupted.
Completely unsustainable.
One single link in that gets disrupted, the entire food chain collapses. The supply chain collapsed. But we were getting our fruit from the farm, and we continued getting safe pesticide-free food from the farm. So our food chain is from here to probably just 50 kilometers away. That's it.
Right.
So once you do that, again things will fall into place. You get diversity, you get local, and you get seasonal. Because it's growing around your area. So you get seasonal. So all those things are automatically taken care of.
Absolutely. It just falls into place. We have a lovely book in our collection called What is Nima Eating Today, which is just about eating seasonal fruits and vegetables. And,
There you go.
what you
Yeah.
say makes so much sense. Arun, who's a librarian at a school in Hyderabad, saying, finally, it comes to money at one point. Earlier, many things used to be free in villages, water and other resources. But now all of this is becoming very expensive, and the common farmer is losing interest in actually farming. What can we do to change it? Is what he's asking.
So it's not just India. It's a very good question. Not just in India, everywhere in the world, all over. It's not like farmers of in United States and Europe are thriving. They're not. We hear about farmer suicide, not just in India.
Okay.
People in US, people in Europe are also distressed. Farmers everywhere are distressed. So, and economics is a big part of your food system.
Absolutely.
But sadly, when you see that whole food system, farmers will always be at the bottom of the chain because it all starts from there. If you want to sell a pack of noodles for 10 rupees,
Yeah.
can you buy wheat for 40, 50, 50, 60 rupees a kg from the farmer? Absolutely not. You have to buy at the cheapest of the cheapest rate and probably compromise on quality also to make that noodles which sells for 10 rupees. So again, I think we are up against all that, but we are what again, I'll come back to the same thing, what you can do, what each individual can do. I think everybody has a role to play.
Absolutely.
And diversity again comes into the picture. We have all types of people. We have industries will remain, businesses will remain, people like we also will remain. But what you can do at your end, I think that's what's matter. So you don't have to think about how this will happen, what the government are going to make a policy to double the farmer income or not. That's not in your control. So you have a role to play. You're doing it right now. You're talking to, you're introducing those such type of books. And so you have a role to, I have a role to play. I'm doing that. Consumers have a role to play.
Yeah.
They start creating for their own kids, very important. They start creating that ecosystem around them.
Absolutely.
What has been built around them is very different. So you have to break that, and it can easily happen at home. Start introducing your kids to take them shopping, take them to a field, take them to a kitchen garden, ask them to grow something.
Correct.
Ask them to, so they can start connecting, they should start making those connections on their own.
Absolutely.
So you don't have to force anything. Now schools will have a visit to a farm. We will go and meet the farmer, or a farmer will come and talk about certain things. They are okay, but I frankly don't think that those things make that huge an impact. If you create a certain ecosystem around your kids, when they grow up, they'll start making different decisions.
Absolutely.
To make a decision, you need some information, right?
Absolutely.
And for kids, it's your responsibility to actually do that. So create that ecosystem around them, surround them with the right type of books, surround them with the right type of knowledge about health and food. So you don't have to worry about a plastic straw, achhi cheez nahi hai, or the kids will automatically make that decision, informed decisions.
In fact, the thing of the plastic straw is probably just a very small thing in that chain.
Exactly.
But equipping them to make these bigger, more sustaining life choices,
Absolutely.
you have to create the
Create that.
ecosystem.
Yeah, that's you can do at your own home. So you don't have to worry about the government policies, the economics of it. You do it when kids grow up. They'll start demanding pesticide-free food. They'll look for healthy food.
Absolutely.
And once they do that, they'll create demand. And once the demand is there, businesses will come, farmers will come. Eventually, it will connect back to the farming also.
Absolutely. That is so wonderfully said. Many people writing in saying, Sunila especially saying that, what you're saying is so wonderful, and that, trying to visit these farms is a step that each one of us can most certainly take. Arun, also thanking you for the response. And in fact, I want to sort of close by saying that for all of us as well, when we landed here, we were absolutely under the belief that Lodi is a harvest festival. You just had to say one thing, to Muthama, Sham, and me, was that look at the weather outside. And I was just thinking, how disconnected have we become with even observing something like that? How can this be in this cold? Be the harvest season over
Exactly.
here.
So you don't have to tell kids about this is festival is this festival is this. You don't have to give that information. They'll make those connections if they know how plants grow.
Absolutely.
How plants grow, what is the cycle they grow, there's a vegetative state, they set seeds, the season changes. Plants are they're smart, they're way smarter than us. Yeah.
Right.
See, we are guests on this planet, please remember that.
Yes.
Plants, trees, they were here growing, thriving like 400 million years ago. Okay,
Absolutely.
they're very smart, they know how to take the seeds and how to germinate, to take their generation forward.
Yes.
So we should observe and learn. Once the kids start doing that, they'll figure out on their own that this season, so the plants would be doing this, and then the weather would change, or the something would happen. It will trigger something in the plant, the biology, and then the plants will set seeds.
Absolutely.
You don't have to tell them about लोहड़ी में ये होता है, यहाँ पे ये होता है. They'll make those connections.
Absolutely. So well said. And I mean, from our end, don't count on those textbooks. I mean, I mean, when you said Lodi was not the harvest season, it just only took me back to my own textbooks from where you learn that this is a Kharif crop, something is a Rabi crop, and this is what happens during Lodi. And I'm like, yeah, you just dispelled it at one. He said, I know you said just look out of my window, and I'm like, yeah, the answer was right there. I just needed to look. That's all, really. I can say, Asha saying, fascinating session. I've enjoyed listening to Rahul Sharma and his experiences. Thank you for including this lived experience to link with the theme of your Buzzaar team, Funky Rainbow.
Thank you so much.
Obviously, many, and Sunila saying, I love this. I do this with my grandchildren. The kids say plastic straws are banned, and, and now there are real paper straws on boxes instead of plastic straws. But the bigger steps are equipping our children to lead more equitable and sustainable lives, isn't it?
Very true.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Such a pleasure, people. Please do check out Graintastic. It's not every day that we meet somebody who chucks up well-paying jobs to come and start farming. Do check out Graintastic on their social media coordinates. And if you live in and around this place, going by Rahul's advice, do consider picking up products from Graintastic if the weather was better. And I think we'll come back during Baisakhi. We would love to host a show, right?
Oh, absolutely. I wish we had probably done it just outside in kitchen garden, and I would love to, show you and make you identify how many things you can
I don't know
growing in my kitchen garden.
That would be an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, Rahul. It was a pleasure hosting you at the Buzzaar. Thank you.
So much.
And not just hosting you at the Buzzaar, thank you for lending us the space and
absolutely.
for opening our eyes out to the delights of nature. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm quickly going to say thank you to everybody. I know it's festival day, and if there's, you guys probably have a whole lot of celebrations lined up. I'm just quickly going to say thank you to all of you who joined in. There's Asha, there's Arun, there's Rupa Sharma, there's Suma Thakur, Deepta Vivekanand, Zaid, Jayashri Nayak, Raksha, Sachu Vaz, Shiraz Saini, Archana Menon, and Nia Parikh. We recommended your books right at the beginning of the Buzzaar. I'm so delighted. She's Bangalore's well-known terrace gardener, and as a family, they try to grow their own food, essentially. Utterly and absolutely delighted that so many of you, despite it being a festival day, Sankranti day in the south, in many parts of South India and many parts of India as well, utterly delighted that you've joined us at the Buzzaar. Food is the thing. Food for thought comes from books, but the real food we eat, give it a lot more thought, folks. That's the message to take away from this conversation today. We'll see you next week at another Buzzaar, which we will host from Chandigarh only. And, looking forward to, recommending many more books and introducing you to many more guests as the season of Buzzaar continues. Thank you so much, and a happy Sankranti, Lodi, Mag Bihu, Uttarayan, Pongal to all of you. Bye-bye.